Hello, welcome to KBC's Bible study, and today we are in Exodus chapter 16. And I'm just going to read verses 1 to 3, actually, probably more like 2 to 3. Here goes. In the desert, the whole community, that's the Israelites, grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you brought us out into this desert to starve the entire assembly to death." Well, the context, as we know, is the Israelites' exodus from Egypt. They've been saved from Egyptian oppression, but not arrived in the promised land yet. There they are in a place of testing in the desert. And the new challenge is not to survive the beatings and the oppression of the Egyptians. It's to guard against starvation. There's 2 million of them, and they don't have food or enough food. And here they are in desperation. The people say, "We preferred the life we had in Egypt. At least there we had food." And Glenn Scrivener, the writer of our devotional, says that this is a picture, perhaps, of our own Christian lives. We are saved from sin and Satan and brought into the newness of life, but not yet living in the promised land of living face to face with Christ. We are still here on earth in a similar situation, in a time of testing, in the figurative desert, if you like. And just like the Israelites, we are tempted to grumble about the present and idealize the past. We can kind of misremember what it was like without God thinking it was better. Rather like the prodigal son, after he's been saved from his wanton life, he looks back and he thinks, the pigsty was such a nice place. It's ludicrous, isn't it? So just like them, we can forget what it was like. And the Israelites have forgotten about the beatings and the genocide and can only remember the barbecues. Yes, the food. But it is a time of testing, and you can't help thinking about all the other moments of testing that we read about in the Bible. Most famously, Jesus. He's the obvious one, being tested in the wilderness following his baptism, being tempted by Satan. Job, going through the suffering, the physical suffering, and the loss he experienced. Whenever we read an account of testings like these, I think it's worth highlighting the difference between the earthly battle and the spiritual one. What do I mean by that? Well, for instance, Satan comes to Jesus at his most vulnerable after he's fasted and he's hungry. He's fasted for 40 days, 40 nights, and he tests him. He says, "Turn these stones into bread." And the physical battle here is hunger. The spiritual battle? Well, it's the temptation to save yourself from that suffering, from that loss, to feed yourself, do yourself a favor. Don't live a life of sacrifice and service. You have the power to make it better. Make it better. Here's some stones and turn them into bread. Rule with me. Here are the kingdoms of the world. Takes him famously to the high point. And it's a refrain that comes back and back again in the life of Jesus, the temptation to save yourself. When Peter stops him on the way to the cross and says, "No, no, Lord, you won't go to the cross." Famously, Jesus said, "Get behind me, Satan," because he recognized it wasn't Peter speaking, it was Satan using Peter's voice. And even as Jesus hung on the cross, the chant through the crowd was, "Save yourself. You saved others, save yourself." And even in the Garden of Gethsemane, you sense there's the same struggle. Jesus prays, doesn't he? "If it's possible, take this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done." And so that's the spiritual battle that Jesus was fighting, and he won. What was Job's spiritual battle? Yes, he was riddled with illness. He lost his family. But the spiritual battle was to continue to believe in the goodness of God in amongst all of that. Joseph experienced betrayal by his brothers, slavery and imprisonment, but the spiritual battle was to forgive those people that had done him wrong, trust in God's plan that he would turn it around for good in the end. And he believed that. He won the spiritual battle. The Israelites, what's their earthly battle? Simple, it's hunger. Spiritual battle? To trust in God to provide for them in the future. So it helps to identify what the spiritual battle is. It gives us the bigger picture, helps us to take our eyes off The physical battle could be that someone is making your life difficult. What is the spiritual battle in amongst all that? We know what the physical battle is. There's that conflict and that stress in it. But what's the spiritual battle? It could be for forgiveness and to trust that God will bring that situation for good, to trust that he could change that situation, to ask God, show me, what is the spiritual battle in this situation? Ask God to help you through it, to navigate through the problem. The Israelites were looking for an earthly solution to their hunger problem. And in their minds, it was simply to go back to Egypt. By the way, God does provide a solution to their physical problem. He provides food for them, miraculously. Read about it in Exodus 16 and onwards. Of course, God does step in and helps us, perhaps only when we've learnt the spiritual battle, the spiritual test through it. So ask God to help you navigate through yours, whatever it is. Well, thank you for listening. God bless. Bye for now.